Good evening and welcome to Nerds and Night. I am, as always, Kid Thunder DJ, joined by the Qbert to my Pac-Man. I don't even know what that means. I've done too many of these.
And Fire 47, and yes, you have.
Yeah, I have. All right, first some shout-outs and shout-outs. We missed last week because I was getting ready to go to New York. I went up and visited some friends in the Albany area. Actually went to a couple really cool game stores up there and checked out some of the local merch up there and brought a few things back, but you know, with not much going on this week, we'll have some fun topics to discuss that we hope you'll stay with us for. Did you enjoy your little break there, Fireheart?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I finally finished up on Tales of Berseria and got through the first ending of many in Nier Automata. I believe there's like 5 main story ones at least. And once I get through that, or you get back into playing it, I'll get into Horizon properly too.
All right. Well, moving on to the shout-outs. Again, I mentioned the Troy Albany stores. There was a couple of really good ones, Pastime Legends, and which was really cool because they had the Miss Pac-Man mini arcade. I need to go with my Mr. one, but they still haven't messaged me back on a deal I can work out with them to get. There was also J Street Games in Albany inside of the Crossbridge Mall there. It was funny because you kind of know when you're working with someone who is a manager or who has managed gamers as an employer when we're just sitting there venting our frustrations about it. You know, and when you're managing gamers as workers, like, Fireheart. Sorry, something in my throat. I meant to say, like, Fireheart over there. Pretty cool little comic shop out there, too, called, and I'm probably going to spell this wrong, Aquilonia Comics. I mean, I sat for, like, 30 minutes there talking to a guy who was an old-timer in tabletop gaming and, like, even down to, like, sports RPGs. Like, he was talking about playing baseball, so I told him about the baseball board game we have from the 80s. He actually remembered it, so hopefully he sees our page and, you know, if he decides he wants it, I might make him a really good deal on it just so he don't got it. And then back to here in the St. Louis area, check out Arch City Gaming and then our buddy Kyle over at Shamrocks, you know, and for the podcast world, check out The Real Spoilers, guys.
All right. Anyway, well, now that out of the way.
Yeah, we can move on. So, anyway, you said you got through the first ending. How is the Nier game you opened without my permission?
Well, again, sorry for that, but it's been fun. Like I said, it's really interesting because I got through the first playthrough, and you play as 2B, the girl robot, but when you finish, you can reload your clear save, and you'll play as 9S. And he's got a really more different fighting style. Compared to 2B, he doesn't dual wield, and he can hack into the enemy robots and make them basically explode from the inside and destroy themselves. Or do things like take over them for temporary purposes or make them fight for you. So there's a lot of little neat things about that, but
it sounds like some of Aloy's abilities in Horizon.
Kind of, but it's a little bit more limited and not, in my mind, as combat effective, because the weird thing is I've only been able to do the taking over on some of the smaller robotic enemies. I can't do it on the larger scale enemies, which would have more use to take over and have them join me.
No, I understand.
For a short time, it's just the only thing you can do is do some heavy explosive damage on them. But yeah, like there's like 5 endings, I think, plus some joke endings, because what was weird was when you're in like a story mission, or first one I discovered was as I started as 9S, you're started back at the factory and you're told to get right into one of the flight suits, and I wanted to go walk off for a sec and go explore some of the little surrounding spots as 9S before they got destroyed, and because I deviated from like the main story path, especially for like what was technically already the past or whatever, because of your playthrough as 2B, it flashed up a joke ending saying like he stopped being a member of the Yora unit and basically went on just to research shit as he does as a scanner, and I got a flash like 2-second scroll of all the credits and it popped me back to the main menu. And then I got another one when I had to leave the Pascal's village for doing that too, trying to deviate from the story when something big was happening. So there's a lot of fun little joke endings. And then the other funny thing that happened to me was this meta moment where when you replay as 9S and you have to, when you're on the bunker going to wake up 2B, where he'll then have you select all your settings.
Yeah.
When you're on the second playthrough as 9S, they recorded your footage of you doing that as 2B, and that's what you watch. So you're literally sitting there watching yourself set the settings.
So there's a lot of meta in that game that's supposed to make it sort of a game within a game.
Right. It's kind of fun. Like,
nice.
And the combat's a lot of fun too. Like the way the pod works, where you can kind of just multi-target things, where you will have him blasting off at a far enemy and then slashing up at an enemy up close.
Nice.
There's a lot of things like that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it did seem like a fun game. I played it a little bit. I didn't get into it near as much as you did before I left, and I enjoyed it. I probably won't go as deep into it as you do, just because it gets a little repetitive to me.
Yeah,
and when games get repetitive, I just sort of fast forward. I tried Nioh tonight too, it's okay. I've got some gripes with it. I know they put these in for gameplay balancing, but some of the things that happen to you when you're out of stamina, like you had said in your own review, were just it's a little bit unrealistic, and it can sort of take you out of the experience. But
yeah, you kind of need things like that to keep you from just spamming attacks.
Exactly. I mean, yes, you do.
Once you get used to it, and like just managing your stamina, I even saw you start to get used to it. You start dog rolling through all things.
Right.
The only things that started to bother you were the Great Knights.
Right. Yes, and yes, some of the enemies are even, it'd be different if they were boss enemies, but by regular enemy things, dog rolling in full armor.
Well, I didn't even mean like that.
I know, but it's still a point of frustration when they can dog roll back off of an attack in full armor. But anyway,
right, but nah.
Yeah, we can argue about that all we want. It's just, just one of those frustrating moments. I like classic games where heavy enemies were heavy and slow, and light enemies were light and fast.
And they get that way even better, like in the later levels when you can like the demon enemies.
Right, but then when you get into the supernatural side, it's a little more understandable. But what is supposed to be ostensibly just a regular knight, it was a little frustrating.
Oh,
but so let's move on.
I think it's something you could get into with more time.
Well, I probably will, but let's move on.
Yeah.
So, I had the trip last week, and I knew I was going to be bored. I mean, I had a 4-hour layover in Atlanta.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, it literally took all day Friday and all day Monday to fly. So. For there and back. So I put some movies on my iPad, and one of the ones I picked up and, ripped to my iPad was Casino on DVD.
Yeah, you've been rewatching that like crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, because you got to think, that movie came out the same year you were born, 94, 95. So it's right around the time you were born. So right. I hadn't seen it in years. I saw it, I think, when it came on cable for its first run showing on cable, and that was it.
I'm surprised they would have a cable run from just some of the small scenes I've seen.
They still did. HBO and Showtime existed back then, so they still had first run movies that they'd get right around the time they came out on video, and we would get those channels thrown on periodically when we complained enough about the cost of the bill. They'd be like, "Well, we can't lower your bill, but we'll give you this and this and this free for 6 months." So we'd take it, and that's when I'd watch it. But anyway. And man, I was watching some of those scenes that I love to watch in that movie they're video game scenes in a movie.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking about this idea of, a lot of times now you would think, with what we can do with computers, a lot more movies now would have that appeal. And it doesn't really fit. Like, that's why we have such trouble making, the reverse of great video game based movies, is because you kind of get everything. There's nothing left to chance. And modern movies have that problem going the other way of like, well, we've already seen all the explosive action we would want to see on the screen, so it doesn't really fit for a video game. That's why the ones that do well, when they take a movie and translate it like that, it works only because they take the world and do something different with it. The biggest example I can give is Spider-Man 2 on PS2, or whichever Spider-Man was based on the movie. That first movie, because it worked really well because it was the characters and the settings, but it was all different stuff. You weren't trying to recreate the movie on a small scale.
Right.
So it worked. But anyway.
Yeah, the first two Spider-Man games are actually pretty good, I think.
Yeah. So taking that got me thinking, I told you to take a classic movie and make a game from it. But I gave you some simple rules. Because it'd be very easy, and in fact it's been done, where you take pretty much an established game, slap a movie franchise on it, and call it a day. Dynamite Cop got called Die Hard here in the States. Nothing to do with it. Or even more directly, something that was a good fit, but that sort of cheapened it because there was no real story. After a while, you were just playing Grand Theft Auto with these skins. Was both the Godfather and Scarface games.
Right.
I mean, yeah, they did missions that were relative to the characters, but considering Scarface picks up immediately after what would have been the last scene of the movie, you know, it's not really continuing that story. So it had to be, you couldn't just outright clone a game. You could take elements of a game, but you had to do something to make it semi-unique.
I think I handled it pretty well. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And obviously, I figured, since it's one I've been watching lately, and there was a lot of scenes that sort of inspired this idea, you know, I went lazy and went with Casino. And I'd break it down like this. You have two parts of the game. You have the sandboxy open world mission game that you're playing more from the point of view of Joe Pesci's character, Nicky. And I know a lot of you are going to go, well, that's just another Grand Theft Auto. Well, in Grand Theft Auto, it really doesn't matter if you finish the mission, how big and grandiose you get with the violence. But one of the themes of the movie Casino was everything was supposed to be done quietly to kind of keep the cops happy and the politicians happy and the
everything
family
had to
back
look
home.
an accident almost, or
Well, not even that. There was very little violence that was even sanctioned because it was the whole idea was to keep everything running smooth because everyone knew the mob was running Vegas, but they're putting $100 million a year into a state with nothing else.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody kind of looked the other way. So what I would do is you'd have all those same sort of missions, you know, some that were story relative, like other families trying to muscle in or people causing trouble for the casino, outside of the casino, where you'd have to do missions. Kind of like when the supposedly silent partner tries to sue to get her share of the casino revenue, and they send Joe Pesci's character to kill her. You know, you have to do that mission, and you have to do everything quietly. And as you start trying to run your own criminal organization out there, you have to do things in such a way where they can't pin it on you to keep everything leveled out for the casino side. And then you'd have the casino side where you would have some missions inside where you'd have to directly deal with things, but at this point the game sort of switches to kind of like a Sims or Playboy, the Mansion, the game model where you're building in the attractions, or even actually take it a step better, make it almost like a Sim theme park where you've got to do
keep the customers happy
right.
too.
You got to keep the customers happy. You've got to keep people coming back. You have to increase the casino revenue so that the skim is increased.
I was gonna say, you can probably make it look, probably have your dealers could have them cheat, but make it some of it could be, you know, you got to handle better dealers so they don't
right. So, or actually you hire better dealers so they don't try to scam you, or you hire dealers who are there to be strong dealers so that, like, there's a great scene in the movie where they notice they're getting ripped off by a blackjack player, and Al Pacino's character gets down on the ground and he's looking to kind of see if he can figure out if the dealer's involved, and he even says, well, he was a weak dealer, but he wasn't involved. He just wasn't protecting his hand. So you could, you know, have those little sort of character stats for dealers you can hire, and you can deal with politicians, which could kind of throw in missions, and you choose how to deal with it. You know, maybe this one guy comes in and
could scare him
because you fail. You know, like you take one of the scenes from the movie, you fire this guy who's related to a county person who could cause trouble, and you decide, do you want to send Joe Pesci's character after him? Do you want to try to bribe him? Do you want to try to talk to him? And that could be where you get a little bit of a difference from those sim games, is you have more options than just, you know, building something or just going out and shooting up the guy. So maybe one time you go, yeah, I can't help you, but here's, you know, 10 grand for your trouble as a severance package, quote unquote, for the person.
Yeah.
And then you just do all that to keep the skim up high so that the family's happy and you're making money and everything else. So that was my idea. You know, take a movie that, and I always found this is better if the movie, it's weird to say, doesn't have a plot. Like by Scorsese's own admittance, Casino doesn't have a plot. It's a story based on true events, so they really didn't have to ramp anything up because the story was so outrageous to begin with. So I find that worked the best because you could really just set everything in motion to where once you reach a certain point, the quote-unquote ending is just where you start going deeper and deeper into movie territory, where you start dealing with the cops getting more and more angry and therefore looking into things more, and the problems with people that you surround yourself with, and Nikki's criminal empire growing too big and causing direct trouble for the casino, and so forth and so on. So that was my idea. So what did you pick?
Well, it took me a bit to think of an interesting idea, but I think I got one.
Okay.
I decided to go with Dances with Wolves. You remember that movie?
Yeah.
About
yeah, that was a really good movie.
Yeah, 1990. Kevin Costner.
Some would say probably one of his last great roles for a long time, because he kind of hit the skid not too long after that.
Yeah. I was thinking about that, where the soldier he plays, John. Obviously, he meets and befriends this Native American tribe around the Civil War era, and the main part of or a good chunk of the movie is him residing solo in this fort and reestablishing it and fixing it up and everything. So you could almost have base building mechanics done in there, where you kind of have to go off on your own into the wilderness nearby, get some resources if you have to, wood or whatever else, maybe help repair things, and then you have the whole main story side more directed with meeting and interacting with the tribe you meet and befriending them, where there are times where he helps.
Right.
You could eventually go into the tribe themselves after they welcome him in and name him and everything. Actually,
right. I could see a great opportunity for this to be a real-time strategy game, or to have that element like there were Lord of the Rings games that did this, where you have some missions that are individual missions, or even you control a small group and you have to RTS units while you're actually fighting, and then you could have your base building mechanics, your resource collecting. I see a lot of great things. That's a really good idea.
I could see an RTS, but I was kind of thinking more like maybe like Red Dead Redemption in terms of gameplay, which all of it would kind of flow more into like that kind of a clone, but like more of like you're in the base yourself literally, and you're walking around it, and you see like, oh, here's one section of the base that needs to be fixed. Like,
right, and
here's the busted wall.
You could do all that as well, yeah.
And then like you're going out, and you have to start learning how to hunt.
But at
and
some
then
point,
as you go, the Native American tribe could teach you some of these things as you befriend them, and they start sharing things back and forth. Like they'll teach you how to hunt after he helped them with that buffalo tribe.
Exactly, I get what you're saying.
Although they'll trade goods with you that they have as you get to explore this village that could be very well historically recreated from like a real one, and like if they did faithfully, that would probably earn it a lot of really good points.
I see what you're saying, but I think in the end,
and then obviously as by the end of it, you have to deal with the
soldiers that But I think what you could do with that is, that would be a great campaign mode. But I do think it's just sort of a way to keep going. Is think about it. He basically wrote the formula to have a video game version of Cowboys and Indians.
Yeah.
So that's where the real-time strategy would kick in, is where you could have these big, sprawling battles, between the two groups. But really good idea. But let's move on to TV now. So, and I know you guys are like, oh, come on, there's only like 2 weeks left in the season. They can't possibly come up with new ways to kick Walking Dead. Well, yeah, we can. And look, I know we've said we're going to try to bring more TV shows into this, but unfortunately, it's the curse of being one of the biggest, as we've said before, but also The Walking Dead invites it, because its ratings are the lowest it's ever been, and yet it parades around still like it's the best thing on TV. Yeah.
Are the ratings that bad?
Oh, yeah. Every time you see a press release, cable's most watched show. Maybe, but still doesn't mean much if your ratings are under what they were for every season before.
Yeah, like I said, I don't watch into the ratings, so
yeah, you don't follow the media.
I don't follow the numbers.
Right, and that's fine. And don't get me wrong, it has its moments still. There's still things going on that I like, but any show that's gone on past like 3 seasons, people post ways to make it better or things they want to see. And there's some spoilers in this list we found. CBR.com had posted it.
Right.
And it caught my attention just because it had funny titles. 15 ways to make The Walking Dead not suck. And I'm like, I already know I'm not going to agree with many of these. Now, we don't have the time to sit here and read out every idea they have. So we're just going to kind of use the bullet points.
I was about to say, we could just skim through the top.
And go with if we agree or disagree. So their number 15 is what caused the outbreak, which is the true thing that people want to know for every zombie thing. Well, what caused this? And very few ever give that explanation beyond saying it's an infection or a virus. And, in Fear the Walking Dead, they don't know what it is.
Some of them, there will always be like, some of it could have been man-made or shit
right.
like that. And it's like,
I don't think it would help to know.
Yeah.
It really doesn't because...
It wouldn't change much.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, that's past information.
Right. I mean,
it's like, that could be something that could be explored in Fear. But in The Walking Dead itself, it's like this is years after already at this point.
Not even that. Not even that. It's just, think about the zombie media where we know where stuff comes from. It doesn't change anything. 28 days later, they were working on a rage inhibitor.
Yeah.
Resident Evil, they were developing a bioweapon. Some of the remade versions of Day and Dawn of the Dead, they mentioned that it's a, created organism. It doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
The Last of Us, they knew it was a mutation of a specific type of fungus.
Yeah, that took over its house when it was died.
Right.
And that one gave it some points because it was more unique and was interesting. But
it didn't change anything.
It was still zombies.
They're still zombies.
Yeah.
So I disagree that would actually help anything. And then, of course, number 14 goes right along with this, finding a cure. I could see that being a good way to get out of the series.
I was going to say, that could be, the final, ambiguous ending bullet point. Or ending for the show.
The final season over arc is,
they discover there's a potential cure, and they work on developing it. And then they finally get, a breakthrough, and then it leaves it at that. As does humanity recover? We don't know. They found a cure, but we'll see.
Hey, look, people, not everybody who dies turns now. What does that mean if, that fear of becoming the undead doesn't exist for you anymore? Does that actually bring back a more, healthier respect for dying, or does it make it where people are more quick to kill? Does it make people more brave in dealing with the dead if they know, hey, a bite on my arm or, other such extremities isn't going to mean I'm automatically dead? So again, I say I agree that could be...
That could help.
All right. Number 12, rebuild society for real. Well, if you've, yes, the TV show has fallen into the trap of, hey, we have a safe place. Oh, look, it's gone. Hey, we have a safe place. But sticking to the comic world, they more or less are doing that. It's still, if you keep up with the Whisper War and stuff, it's still under constant threat. But society as a whole is always under constant threat.
Right, and they've already started this in their own way. Like I said, with like you were saying with Alexandria, and now the other kingdoms that are being discovered or the settlements, that's already happening.
Right. So, I just give that one a neutral.
Yeah.
All right. So. Also, there's they call it the walking skeletons, which is they want to see the zombies evolve. And they based it off the idea of, yes, they're rotting to such a degree. How would that happen if, all of the flesh on these creatures begin
what keeps the brain intact
to fully, what keeps it going? And I was like, okay.
That'd be kind of, that could be neat
for them to understand how the walkers are continuing to walk with such degradation would be interesting. So I'll give that one a plus. But it doesn't... I don't think it would save the series. Much. It would just be
a neat thing.
Cool information to have.
Yeah. I still kind of like what they were actually doing with the show. Right now, where they were showing Eugene telling Negan to, here, put metal or cast metal.
Basically melt them to the fence.
Right, cast metal over the fence. And at first when he suggested that, I was in my mind thinking, is this some plan that Eugene has to basically have them destroy their own fences by melting it?
No.
Because I feel like the metal would burn through the simple chain fence faster before it would melt or
if it's steel,
solidify back up.
If it was steel chain, it'd be fine. If it was a steel chain link fence, it's fine.
Okay.
But anyway, number 10 is they say use the gay characters. And they really just, you know, they're going through the whole thing of, hey, how do we deal with their relationships, and wouldn't it be more cool if we focused on them? In theory, yes, but it's a relationship, and in the Walking Dead TV show, relationships really do take sort of a back seat to the immate issues.
That or they don't last. Or
right.
You know,
so it's
the
like
character will either break up or they die. Like what happened with Abraham.
Right.
Like what happened with... Because Abraham went between two girls at one point.
Right. So
between Sasha and
right.
Rosita.
But let me just, because I don't want to spend too long on this. Let me just wrap it up and say, you know, I think the better fix would be make all relationships matter and not diminish them because they're gay.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem. One of the problems with the show is the relationships really don't get as fleshed out as you think they do, especially in these later seasons. So
also, did you like actually see how they put out that like reveal for Jesus that he was gay?
No, but I don't.
He basically was like confiding in Maggie how he was always had difficulty developing and creating like friendships with people, and he was like neighbors, friends, and boyfriends was the way he worded it, something like that. And it was like, I mean, neat that you got a lot. You know, you stayed true to the comics of his character and got that out there, but it was just like, what a like quiet way to say it.
No,
like,
that's good. That was actually
it was
good.
Almost kind of subtle. It was just
because
like,
it needed to be subtle. Now, here's number 9, and here's one of the biggest ones I agree with, and that is what's the end game. And their thing is you know, the series doesn't always have a lot of direction,
right?
And I've always said for a while we need to know where we're going so that we can start caring about how we're getting there. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because we beat that point to death, but it's the one I agree with the most.
Oh, yeah.
Number 8 is this give us the Sam Witwer spinoff. That's the guy who starred as the tank zombie, and there was this whole thing going around about having him have a special flashback or a mini-series, because in the first season, Belisarius, or whoever or not Belisarius, what's this guy's name?
The guys from Fear?
No, the original director who got fired in season 1 to 2, Darbono. Darbono wanted to sort of say this whole notion of every zombie having a story and wanting to do flashbacks or some kind of special thing that focused on a few of these people and how they got there, which was sort of...
They're kind of mini moments like that where not every Walker has a story that's shown.
Well, no,
like,
and they've really stepped away from even tacitly getting there. The last one that we really got any sort of knowledge on who wasn't a character first, just here's the zombie and here's who they were first, was the chick that Rick found who asked him to help her die. I mean, but I don't want to dwell on this too long. I just want to say that, you know, we got a taste of that with the original web series that they would do. Like we found out how the bicycle girl, as they called her, became that, and that was it.
Yeah.
I really think they could do more with doing that as a web series. It's a lot better than the 30-second long 16 bullshit ones from
every week. Yeah.
Right, from Fear. So that's what I'd like to see. So
and they're still doing that now.
Right. Number 7 is pre-breakout flashbacks. They do enough of those, I think. I know they're more centered around specific plot points, but we really, you know, if they already botched their chance to really do a great look at the world up to the moment with Fear the Walking Dead. We only had 2 episodes before we were full on balls deep into the
same thing as usual.
Right. So I disagree. That's not going to really help. And I'm
going to say careful that might play on you.
Meh. And then there's also more breakout flashbacks, basically. That'd be difficult to do in television because people age. You know, Carl went from a 9-year-old boy to a 14-year-old boy.
Oh, yeah.
So doing flashbacks of other things like, you know, Lori and Shane's time before Rick, or, you know, more flashbacks to Carol with Ed still alive and Sophie are great ideas, but just not practical to do. And it would be...
Basically, they are limited. They are unable to do pretty much anything involving any of the child characters anymore.
Right.
Because they are so much more aged.
Right. So it's like, meh. It would be great, but nah. Another thing is faster pace, less art house. Basically, yes, focusing more on progressing the story and not character development. All in on that. Number 4 is BS, which is kill Rick, because that's, I realize TV is a little bit different than comics, but that would be like killing Batman and Batman comics,
Yeah.
Unlike in comic books where you can't just bring them back or anoint a new one. Television's a different animal. Yes, I could kill Superman and have him come back in another reprint. You could probably kill Rick in the comics and have him either come back where you find out he wasn't really dead somehow. I do realize for Walking Dead that would be a bigger reach or whatever. But you can't really do that in television because you're so resigned to the characters on the show as they are that could break the show. So it really wouldn't help. Number 3 is going global. I agree because it would, we've already seen that it is at least all of North America, the continent. Because between Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead, they've established like that. The one guy in Fear the Walking Dead who was at a ranger station who said, hey, up north into Canada's gone silent. And then obviously we see how bad off Mexico is.
Oh, yeah.
Number 2 is go in depth in the walkers, which is basically a combination of all the other stuff they said about walkers, their evolution, who they were before. So, meh. And then number 1 is right for a TV audience. They already do. That's, they claim in the article they're writing for fans of the comic books. No, they're not. They just know they've stumbled on the parts of the comics that are so iconic that if they don't do them at least some justice, the fan base that keeps the show going would dwindle. You couldn't introduce Negan any other way than you introduced him. You can't really do too much more with him at this point in the story than what they're doing with him, or you will lose everyone because he's such an integral part. Now, where they go after here, they could get wide open and they could deviate a lot more. People wouldn't care. Yeah. But that's the big thing. So that's my opinion is probably a good solid 8 to 10 things on here.
Some right, some wrong,
that
some
are
meh.
good, but a lot of meh and a lot of things that would be nice but don't really,
work.
Don't really, or even if they work, don't really matter.
Yeah.
Wouldn't change the show enough for it to say it would make it not suck. Anyway, so that's it for television, and, we're moving right along for this week's show. I can't guarantee it's going to be even a normal length show because, again, there's just not a lot. We're in that weird spate
Where are we
post.
right now?
We're in that weird spate post tax time where not many good games are out. Nothing much is going on in entertainment news
after
matters. I mean,
after that, slew of hits from Horizon, Zelda, Nioh, Nier.
Right after everything. I mean,
we've went through those.
I know we've promised to do more with the Nintendo Switch, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like the VR technology that's come out. It's such its own isolated island in the world of gaming that I just don't think it's as funny as it is. And I know people who hear this who are a fan go, oh, but it's sold this much and it's been sold out. So is the Wii, and it resigned to the same fate. It's separating itself so much that it's just there. And I'll talk about it more as more proven things come out about it. Because, one day you hear stories that, there's problems with screens being weak. And then, or problems with serious connection issues. And it's like, yeah, a couple of fanboys say that. It picks up steam and then it goes away. Which usually means that it was something on their side.
Yeah.
But anyway.
There's always the smaller issues. And
right.
Basically, the whole thing with the Switch, I think, in my mind right now, is just it needs more to play.
Well, yeah, but that's...
Because there's the smaller games, sure, but right now there's still, I think, only Zelda after, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
There's still Zelda, there's Bomberman, and there is that 1, 2, 3 Switch that is apparently really fun. That's actually becoming... That's probably the second highest rated game behind Breath of the Wild.
I've actually been watching, I've been watching a couple of playthroughs from, the Game Grumps on it. That Snipper Clips game looks really dumb at first, but actually getting into it, if you actually have someone to play with, looks like it's actually kind of fun.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of clever little mini games that you have to do with it. It's not just cut yourself to match X shape. You also have other little challenges and shit you have to do. Watching it actually looks like it'd be kind of fun, especially for a multiplayer type thing. But yeah, at this point it's still just a lack of games because between Snipper Clips, Bomberman, Zelda, and that racing game, that's about the only ones that are worth playing. And the 3 of the 4 you'll burn through pretty quick.
Right, but
people are just like crossing the fingers of like,
right. We'll see where it goes.
Here's the more Nintendo games coming down the
right. Right now they're really hammering like in all the advertisements and third parties coming. That's the make or break for the Switch. That's where it's either gonna be Nintendo's savior or Nintendo's doom. Because if they can't get good third party games that are at least marketable to what's out there
in good time as well,
which is already going to be hard because it's already been proven it's not the same graphical quality as a PS4 or an Xbox One, which makes sense as it's a tablet.
Gasp.
Right. We'll see what happens. But let's move on from gaming right now.
Yeah.
I do want to make one last programming note. The YouTube channel, I know we've burned through almost all of Season 2. I have one more series of videos that hopefully this week Brandon and I will be able to cut. We're going to do some more sports games that are non-traditional versions of the sport. So for wrestling, we're going to do Saturday Night Slam Masters. Soccer, we're going to do Soccer Brawl. We may do one of the arcade robot baseball games, or maybe even just like Mutant League or something like that. So we'll keep you posted on what they are. They don't, thankfully, with the way we do them, we can crank them out relatively quickly. So we'll get them out to you soon.
I still kind of want to get a chance for us to do a video on Nioh, but I ain't confirming anything.
Right, yeah. I might let that be your first standalone project. You got to start learning how to use some of this editing stuff anyway, so that might be your first project, but we'll get back to that. All right, so let's get to my favorite part of the week, wrestling. Now, it's so funny to say this now, but especially in the era we're in kind of a slow period. We already know where Mania is going. Everything is building to that, and we've pretty much got the card set as we talked about last show. So there's really not much going on, but there has been one WrestleMania-related thing that seems to stick in a lot of hardcore fans' crawl that I want to talk about. Plus, there was a pretty major incident, too, actually, one that's not on sheet, that happened off that I want to talk about. And the first major incident that happened off screen I want to talk about is our thoughts and prayers go out to Jim Ross's family. His wife, Jam, was in a terrible Vespa accident and unfortunately passed away.
Oh, wow.
And, so, I don't like to say too much more than that. I don't want to go gushing on and on because at some point it becomes disingenuous. I just want to say that, we're sorry to Jim Ross that him and his family have to go through this right now.
Has he taken just like a emotional leave? Or?
Well, I mean, he's been off of WWE's radar for a while, but he does stuff for New Japan and occasionally What Culture and a few other promotions. But, I just want to say thoughts and prayers to the man. That's it. Keep them in your thoughts, guys. But anyway, let's go on to the Mania stuff that I want to talk about. AJ Styles and Shane McMahon, their match coming up. And, of course, up until we pretty much got it locked earlier this week on SmackDown that it is going to be Shane McMahon fighting him, everybody's like, well, here's where they could bring up Nakamura, or here's where we could get one more Kurt Angle match. And I had started out kind of on that same page, just from a fantasy booking perspective, but I really got to thinking about it. And here are the main reasons why those would be bad ideas.
Because,
No. We have AJ Styles for years to come, barring injury. I mean, obviously, he could blow out a knee bad enough or something where he could be done. But let's assume he gets no more than the more common injuries to a wrestler. We've got 5 to 10 years at least with him in Mania matches. We're going to get plenty of great AJ Styles Mania moments. So him just not being in this one. I know people want to go, well, he was, champion for so long and this and that. Exactly. Think about it. You still want to see it. He's not John Cena, who we were sick of by this point in his reign. So taking a step down the card a little bit, as long as he doesn't stay there, could really help kind of keep that momentum going, especially with some of the future plans of moving him to Raw or whatnot. Getting that, sorry, I had to take a drink. Giving that chance for everything to sort of simmer, but not really cool down with him, might be a great way for when they do turn the heat on him again, everything to boil up better. So we'll see. Second, Shane is still a special attraction draw for WWE. I mean, everything about his match with Undertaker sucked until the big falls, but those big falls still pop the crowd. And as long as he can do that, they're still going to use him for those matches. And obviously, they could use this to write AJ Styles off into other matches, which is, maybe he gets the best of Shane and Shane decides to make it personal and throws him into another feud with a wrestler because he just couldn't get it done himself. Which is better than Shane bringing in another wrestler because his character has always been he'll fight his own battles even if it means his defeat. I mean, this is a guy who went toe-to-toe with Angle. This is a guy who went up against X-Pac. This is a guy who went up against Kane and Undertaker. So, no offense to Styles, but why would he go through all those guys and just go, you know what, I'm going to bring in this guy from NXT to fight you in Nakamura, or I'm going to bring in Kurt Angle. And why would you waste either of those debuts or returns with basically one, I think, maybe 2 shows left before WrestleMania?
What's been happening with Kurt Angle? I just heard a lot about him recently.
He came back to be in the Hall of Fame, and so far that's it.
Okay.
So,
because I remember hearing a little bit about him from a What Culture video.
Right.
That was talking about him, and then I was like, did he jump back into the news recently? I haven't heard of him for a while.
Now, I'll give WWE credit. They could pull a swerve, especially if live event crowds or whatever tell them that, hey, this just isn't going to work. So here's a couple ways they could make it work and try to basically have their cake and eat it too. Shane brings in Kurt Angle as a referee, and this is going to be a little convoluted, but it ain't like WWE doesn't like convoluted. And Angle seemingly screw Styles out of the match. Or even that, going back a step, you have AJ asked to have Angle as the ref because of their history. You can lie and say it's from Japan and not TNA, but still, and say that he trusts him to call it fair since his job is on the line, because you could change the stipulation to say that Styles would remain fired if he loses. And then you have Angle seemingly screw Styles, only to reveal that he convinced Stephanie to give AJ Styles a Raw contract, and that they worked it out together and pulled a fast one. A little convoluted, a little unnecessary, but again, WWE likes that. Or you have AJ screw him, just keep him on SmackDown after revealing that he knows that Styles negotiated a deal and was planning an exit. That way you kind of trump all that up. But both of those are ways to go. Another one to get Nakamura involved is maybe you have Styles show up and cost him the match against Rude at the TakeOver before Mania. And you can claim that, Styles and Rude were friends, and Rude, asked AJ to come down and watch his back. Something like that. And then, after the match with Shane, you could then have Shane bring up Nakamura to repay him at the next draft for what happened and have them go at it then. Neither one are great, but, those are 2 of the better ways to bring them in without changing the match itself too much. Now, one of the last things I just wanted to talk about and really wanted to kind of get my opinion in on is the whole thing that happened with Paige being hacked and videos and pictures of her and sexually explicit things coming out. Now, first of all, if you're one of those people who, as soon as you hear about a celebrity nude leak, has to go to Google, has to see it all, you're part of the problem. And you're an asshole.
I didn't even hear about this, to be honest.
Right. Like when the fappening happened or whatever, that whole bullshit. Yeah. Don't do that. You be classier than that. Look for people who released nakedness of themselves legitly. There's enough of it out there.
Oh, yeah.
Or I do give the one referendum. If the person in question writes it off and says they don't care, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But if it's clearly affecting the person, don't.
Yeah.
Be classier than that.
Like
but anyway, that's just, taking my morality out of it now. The people involved weren't necessarily wrong for what they were doing, other than the ones who were in a committed relationship with a partner who had not given them the consent to play without them. And the reason why I kind of say all 3 of them are victims is because that was a private moment made public without their knowledge. And I just worry about how it's going to be handled, because you had the New Day make a very, very, very slight allusion to it on Raw with the looking at Xavier Woods and saying, is there something you want to tell us? And then, but of course they turned it into a joke about WrestleMania, but that was definitely them making reference of it. And I say all this because I'm worried about Paige, who is already kind of on thin ice to begin with, and what they're going to do with her. Now, one thing...
How come she's on thin ice?
Oh, God, that would take a whole show to explain the heat she's brought on herself.
Okay.
We'll leave it at stupid decisions, okay?
Okay.
First of all, but I bring this all up about, why they're doing this and what this could mean, because there are some things to keep in mind. There were two other people willingly involved. She's not the first star to get these kind of photos leaked. Seth Rollins' penis got leaked out by his fiance when it was revealed he was cheating on her. And
wow.
Yes, the woman's belt was involved, the NXT woman's belt, but come on, Shawn Michaels posed in Playgirl with the Winged Eagle belt around his dick. Plus the, DX VHS cover where, whether he was wearing underwear behind it or not, he still had seemingly been shown on the case with Chyna and Triple H holding the belt over his private area while he was ostensibly standing there naked. So, this has already happened. Sanctioned by the WWE. And different time or not, it would be hypocritical of them to punish them. Now, I'll give them credit. So far, by all accounts, they're looking at Paige as the victim and saying nothing's going to happen. And I really hope they keep this up, because it'd be a good PR move for them to say, look, she's a victim too, just like Seth Rollins was. We're not going to punish them because they had no control. But in a weird sort of moment for equality, so long as she's okay with it, they need to give her that same wink, nudge, yes, it happened, let's move on, kind of like they did with Xavier Woods, because they need to take the shame aspect out of it, or if not, every time things turn around, that could be used against her again and again and again, not just by people outside of wrestling, but unfortunately, with WWE's history of quote-unquote kindness to their talent, such as the Piggy James angle and other such things, it could be used against her by the company.
Which one's that angle? Is that the thing about...
Where they were making fun of... Where they were having divas make fun of Mickie James for her weight in spite of still being a, model-level body.
I thought
who just happened to be more closer to a real woman than a stick.
What was the one about Ric Flair and his boy?
That has nothing to do with this.
Okay.
Sorry. I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm talking about...
Well, they brought it up in someone tried to bring it up for a story or something like.
Oh well, yeah, that's different. I mean, okay, I get what you're saying. Now the Reed Flair angle, that's different. That's them taking a tragic situation and using it to add heat. What I'm talking about is, I could see them with Paige, having a female superstar try to shame her for it happening.
Yeah. Which
is something they haven't done to Xavier Woods or didn't do to Seth Rollins. They didn't have they didn't have Triple H going, you don't deserve a title shot, look at the way you act. I could see them doing that with Paige, and they need not to. They need to have the same attitude with her that they had with the gentleman to show they're being fair.
Okay, yeah.
And that could get them some positive attention if it's done right, because it's like, hey, look, this happened, and they're treating this person exactly as they should treat them.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion. Tangent over.
Yeah,
I mean,
that'd be the best thing.
Right.
I was only bringing that point up because if they had done something bad, because then it would be... something about it kind of reminded me of that.
Well, yeah, and I get what you're saying, because, yeah, they could have totally done that. They could have totally, when she comes back from her neck injury, they could totally use that to hit her with every time they need to cool her momentum. Like, they could have whoever she's feuding with go, oh, yeah, well, you're just a, slut who let her pictures get, something like that.
Something unnecessary.
Right.
That is like
and hopefully they don't.
Damaging to her character.
And time will tell. So,
yeah.
But that's it for this week. As always, thanks for listening to Nerds at Night. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, all of it, just by searching for Nerds at Night and ITE. Once again, check out on Facebook the businesses we mentioned, especially if you're listening out of this area up in the Northeast, just to check them out. As always, I'm Kid Thunder DJ.
And I'm Fire 47.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.